in one of the videos I mentioned that I don't exactly remember how I got my company car that I got as a first car in Georgia, but it was brought from Baku office, and probably somebody who came from Baku office to visit Georgia just drew it to Tbilisi, and that's how I got it. And I got it pretty early after my arrival back in late '98. But there were some comical, circumstances around that particular car. First of all, on the overall, how did look Tbilisi car fleet, or cars that were driving on Tbilisi streets, that car was kind of good. Well, first of all, it was new, and second, it was foreign, and it was faster and whatever, because most of the cars on the street were old Soviet made, and they were old, so most of them were really old, like 15-20 years old, some even more, in very bad shape. You could understand how they actually keep together, and is it mud that keeps them together or what? But on the other side, it was much worse car than I was used back in Latvia. So my first impression was, I would have to drive this, and I had all the pride around the fact that I'm international manager, I'm assigned here to be an expert and all that stuff, and now you are giving me this. So it was Toyota. I don't remember the particular model, but it was pretty loud. It was small. It was not very fast. So it was, and it was plain, like the most skinny complexion of a car that you could imagine. But it was good new car. But anyway, I was not very happy about that. Second thing, and that's how I got lucky. Second thing, it had Azeri number plates on them, so it was registered in Azerbaijan, and it had Azeri number plates. Armenia and Azerbaijan still are actually in a state of war. They have just ceasefire agreement signed, and thankfully there are no violence, or there are a lot of violence happening on Armenian Azerbaijan border. But back in '98, their last actually full-out war was pretty recent. And even now, I guess, with Azeri number plates, the same as with Armenian number plates, you could not cross borders between those countries, or even drive through. There's no border crossing between those countries, but even with Armenian car driving through Georgia into Azerbaijan, that would not be possible, and vice versa. And of course, one of the reasons is that would not be possible because of security. If you go with Azeri number plates to Yerevan, well, probably you are not going to come, at least your car is not going to return back in a good shape. Anyway, that's just guessing around. You could not cross the border, period, point. So, so that was a problem. I cannot drive that car to Armenia. And I'm responsible for Armenia too, so I need to be in Armenia at least once a month, and I cannot use that car. You could fly, but back in '98, all the plane fleet that would, I think there was no regular flights between Armenia and Tbilisi, at least in the beginning of '99, and then it was occasionally appearing and disappearing until at some point of time it became regular. But back then it was not very regular, as I remember, and planes were awful. I mean, basically, thankfully, PNG had their own policies, and that were forbidding me to fly on those planes. But I have experience of flying a plane or being a passenger on a plane that crashed. I was not on that plane on that day, but that was catastrophic crash with many people dying, and I was flying that plane just a few days before. So so that could have happened with me if I would decide to fly. Anyway, coming back to car thing. So there is a decision to that I would need to buy a car locally in Georgia. Well, there is a problem. There is no legal subsidiary of P&G in Georgia. I'm just a representative there. So P&G cannot buy car on its balance sheet. So P&G needs to, buy it through distributor and all that stuff. So it takes time before everything is sort of sorted. And my manager, Jim Kennedy, I think he was transferred from Kazakhstan, and he says, well, why don't we buy you Lada? Everybody in Kazakhstan drives Lada and is happy. And I was like, Lada? No. but again, you don't have a lot of arguments because, well, it's a car, so why would you not drive Lada? But then there is this road to Sadakhlo, which now is of course repaired. But back then it was like a minefield. It was holes and holes and pitfalls, and sometimes you would drive actually on the field because that was smoother than driving on the actual road. So the last 30 kilometers between Marneuli and Sadakhlo was pretty devastated. And as we took trip with Jim again to Armenia, I noted out that Lada would not be a very good car to drive this road, and he agreed that we probably need a full four-wheel drive, and we would need to buy that. So anyway, it was a whole thing. It took time before we got to decision, budget, and everything. Now again, back in 98, 99, in Tbilisi, you would not have a street with car dealers with all possible brands out there and with all possible cars in their stock, where you would go in and you say, I would need this brand in yellow color. No, it was like, I remember there was Toyota, still very popular in Georgia. There was Honda, and I don't know whether there was anyone else actually. And Toyota, the full four-door version was like way out of the budget, but they had two-door Toyota Prado, and I liked it so much. I felt like a kid in a candy shop once they decided that they are giving me a budget. The budget was fantastic, so I was like, let me get a fantastic car. And Prada, of course, was it was bigger and muscular and high and big wheels and everything, and and I was ready to, but it was above the budget, and I said I'm ready to pay myself above the budget part, and that's where my manager's sort of wisdom kicked in, because he was definitely way older than me, and he said, well, why would you pay from your pocket for a company car which you will never ever return, because it just goes away. And so I was around that Prado, but I was not able to persuade nobody that it's a smart decision, which is good that I was not able to. But then, as I had to be going to Yerevan, meanwhile, because actually between deciding that I need to change car, deciding in budget, finding out the way how to buy that car, finding a way how to register in Georgia, and deciding on the model and actually getting that car, it probably took 6 months before I actually started to drive my final corporate car that I used for 2 years. Meanwhile, I was renting cars, and again, in car rental, it was not like there were tens of car renting companies. It was just one or two, and we found Avis, and I think it was Avis or Hertz. Don't remember, but anyway, they were accepting my card because I had a fancy American Express card, P&G. Fancy American Express card, though it was not accepted in Georgia, like nearly nowhere. It was not accepted. It was accepted in Sheraton Hotel. It was accepted by that car rental company, and it was accepted by one of the banks in Tbilisi. So I was constantly going to that bank to withdraw money, because otherwise it was useless. It was just a piece of plastic. And the same in Armenia. The same in Armenia. I think in Armenia it was accepted by Marriott in Yerevan, and that's pretty much it. Maybe it was accepted, maybe not. Not sure. But yeah. Anyway, during that period, I was mostly living cash, so it was cash, and then I would be paying cash. Now, coming back to the rental thing, the only way to rent a car was to rent it with a driver, and they had choice of probably three or four cars, and you rent it with a driver. And so before I got my company car, soon I'm gonna tell you what car. I was renting car, and that's how I was getting to Yerevan. And of course, my stories about me crossing Georgian-Armenian border, are more related to the period when I got actually my company car and I started to cross that border myself. Because when you go with the driver is handling all the documents and everything. So I was just sitting in a car, and he would take my passport and deal with the border guards and deal with the customs guys and everything. So in most of the cases, I would not even step out of the car. But and then that company that we were renting cars from, they decided that, or they got the dealership of Nissan, and Nissan Pathfinder was well in the budget, and it was fantastic car. I really loved that car. One of my favorite cars during my whole history driving different cars. So I was in love with that car, and I was really happy that back then when I got Pathfinder, I was really happy that I didn't took Prado was two doors, and I was not paying on top of the budget. So I'm really happy that it solved out that way. So now, first trips I did with the rental car. So first, quite many trips I would say, and then I started to drive my own Nissan, and that's when I got my first encounters with reality of crossing borders between Georgia and Armenia. There are a couple of things. Well, first of all, border guarding was very different on both sides. Very different. On Georgian side, it was very poor in terms of infrastructure, in terms of how it looked. It looked like a temporary border cross, even though it was one of the main crossings on Georgian border at all. There are not many crossings, and it was one of the main crossings on Georgian border out of, I would say, 4 or 5, given the fact that there is a border crossing with the Russian border as well, but a major one. Now, borders are guarded by officers who are on a contract, and then there are those who are they are recruited, and they are in obligatory military service back in Georgia and Armenia back in those days. And anyway, if you have been traveling in Georgia back in those days, or if you have been traveling in the countries which are rather poor, then you would know that in most countries of that type of description, everyone who is having whatsoever power is corrupt. And it's not like this bad corruption that they are taking millions or something, but they take, they are bribed by cigarettes, or they are bribed by $1 or whatsoever. This is just a custom. They have power to let you in, not let you out. They have power to keep you on a border for longer or shorter. And in order to get away from all those troubles, everybody just gives some money. Or on the other side, most people crossing borders are doing something illegal this way or another. So in order to get away from bigger problems, they just give small things to everybody involved. Now, back in the day, in my 24, I still had all those idealistic views of the life, and I still have some of them, and still haven't been bribing people, but I think I had this bravery of being stupid because there were people around with machine guns and everything and with power and who could take things away from me or who could keep me there for very long. And but I had this opinion that I'm PNG representative. PNG never gives bribes. I'm never giving bribes. Not allowed, not possible. And as I had this very strict concept in my mind that this is not possible, this is not negotiable, then I was not just giving. I mean, on Georgia border, nearly everybody would say me, give me one latte or give me cigarettes or give me something, and I would say no. I would say no. And as I was crossing that border very often, like I said, at least twice a month, because I would do at least one trip to Yerevan every month, if not two, then at least twice a month I was on that border, going that way and going back. And on both cases, it was people checking my passport and writing in the journal my name and everything, and then putting stamp, and then looking back in a journal and making sign that I actually came back and all that stuff. So I was pretty occasional there, pretty often. Then after a while, they stopped asking me for those bribes. The only ones who attempted to do this were new recruits who were on the border and who didn't know me. But they started also to respect me because I was not disrespecting them. I was not treating them without respect. I was just saying, no, I cannot give you any money. I don't remember what were my initial arguments, but I was just, no, not possible. And yeah, so after a while, we had all kinds of jokes around, and we had fun, and they saw me, they knew me, they recognized me, and I would surpass the queue. Yeah, I was a bit hooligan, so I'm not saying that I was fantastically, but I would just surpass with my black car and stop there and go with my passport and do the stuff and go further. So I don't care about it. Even though I was not paying bribes, I was getting away with that. And what I really appreciate is that in many other cultures or many other countries, me not paying bribes, but still I would not get along. In Georgia, I got respected even though I was not giving any bribes. No, Armenian side was slightly different, even though pretty much the same, but it was looking much better. The border crossing point, even though it was not finished, and now it looks even better. And now Georgian side looks even better than Armenian side, at least the last time I was crossing that. But for a while, Armenian border crossing was like, you go out of field or temporary border crossing into normal, regular border crossing point, right? With the roofs, with the structures, with everything. So, but of course, as Armenia is quite military country and used to be at least quite militarized country, and due to all the wars, then border crossing and getting visa there was a serious process. So you could feel this is serious. This is not bullshit. So and I had to get Armenian visa every time I was for a very long period of time. I had to in Georgia. I had a multi visit annual visa, but for Armenia I had to do every time until I got the residency permit in Armenia as well. So my passport was full pretty quickly. So there were no jokes in the border crossing. There were those border guy boys, those who are recruits. But then when it comes to officers checking your documents and officer giving you visa, it was very serious. They were not, I guess they probably, those checking documents sometimes maybe expected me to give something inside of passport, but that would probably do the guys who are driving with the potatoes back and forth. But no. But then there was a customs part, and that's a different story. That's a different story. In Armenia, in Georgia, I didn't have to do anything in customs because it was Georgian car, so I didn't have to declare my car, or there was not much of doing with the car's papers. But in Armenia, I had to register for temporary import of a car, and I had to pay a road tax, and then I had to register for bringing out that car and all that stuff. So it was another paperwork that was, somebody with one finger in a computer. I'm not making fun. It's just back in the day in '98, like 22 years ago. People out there, like if you are not in an office worker, you were not used to use computers. So typing skills, even now not everybody knows how to type fast with all 10 fingers, but back then people who were being hired and just given a computer, they would just type with one or two fingers. And of course, and my surname was not an easy surname for Georgian Armenian. It was difficult, so they had to do it letter by letter. And so it was very long, even though there were not a lot of cars on that border, but it was long. Crossing that border was around an hour every time whenever I was crossing. And I would say it doesn't matter. It was 2 cars on the border or it was 5 cars on the border. It was always an hour and a bit. So yeah. On the customs side in Armenia, they would be expecting me to give them some money to speed up the process or take me outside of the queue and get me across faster. But I was not giving anything. And again, after some while, I was recognized. People would know me. Those who work on the border, they would know me, and they would they would give me some favors out of just respect, out of just that we know each other. And again, having some fun, having some jokes, and then of course, very specific stories around having Armenian visa in your passport and crossing Azerbaijan border, or having Azerbaijan visa and crossing Armenian border. So but I will probably go to those things later on when I will talk about my trips to Azerbaijan, and then I will take the whole story about visas as well, because this has been quite lengthy video anyway. So thank you for watching it, and of course I appreciate if you subscribe to my channel and put a like or comment below the video, because that creates me some sense of interaction and understanding of what is not important for you in those videos. So thank you once again for watching, and have a fantastic day today. Bye bye.